I was gonna rip his heart out, I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lennox is a conqueror, no, I'm Alexander, he's no Alexander. I'm the best ever, there's never been anybody ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston, I'm Jack Dempsey, there's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw, there's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart, I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
Welcome back to Keep It Real Boxing. This is Cypher Box, and welcome to the very first episode of my new podcast called Bout the Ropes. Basically, guys, the idea behind this whole podcast is it's an opportunity for me to give my opinion on the latest trending stories and topics in the sport of boxing. The other reason is really, I do find it hard to upload and deliver daily content of what's going on in the sport of boxing. So the whole idea of this podcast is that maybe do a once a week or a twice a week podcast where I touch on a number of stories and give it to you all in one lengthy video, one lengthy podcast for your enjoyment, of course, and just basically give my opinion. The whole idea of this channel is for me to just give my opinion as a boxing fan on what's going on in the sport currently, whether it be this week, the previous week, whatever the stories are, just to give my opinion and give my insight into what I think is going on. And one more thing, just for the record, this is not David Haye. Alright, and people are going to wonder, what are you going on about? Alright, there's been a few people who've jumped on my videos in the past and said that I sound like David Haye. I had someone, a new subscriber who's jumped on my channel, comment on my video yesterday saying that I sounded like David Haye. Okay, let me just confirm, this ain't David Haye. Alright, okay, had a bit of banter with him yesterday about it. I don't think I sound like David Haye, no, I definitely don't. Alright, anyway, look, moving on. Okay, so let's get started with Jorge Linares versus Vasyl Lomachenko. Listen, I think this is a great fight. These boys have been going back and forth with each other on social media, trash talking each other, doing the memes and all that sort of stuff, calling each other out, really dissing each other and getting in each other's faces. I love all of that. I know a lot of people don't like it, they think it's classless and stuff like that, but I enjoy it. I think it's great. I think, it's great entertainment in my opinion in terms of a build-up for a fight. So these boys are definitely up for fighting each other. An article came out in boxingscene.com today where it has been confirmed that Carl Moretti, the vice president of Top Rank Promotions, has contacted the president of Golden Boy Promotions, Eric Gomez, and they've started negotiations. Now, the only issue that seems to have come out at the moment is the date for the fight. Now, Top Rank want May 12th. They like May 12th because on ESPN there's a lot of the basketball playoffs or something like that. I don't know why they would want it on a day where you've got basketball players going on ESPN and you want to put a fight on I don't know why. In a sense, you're kind of competing with another event, which another major sport in the US. But Golden Boy have said that that date's not good for them. That they've already got plans for that day and they won't be able to make the fight on that date. Basically, what do I think about the fight itself? I think it's a good fight. Listen, look, I'm not really big on the whole pound for pound thing. I don't really like, I have my reasons for why I don't really take much notice of the whole pound for pound topic or get into the whole pound for pound debate. I prefer to see unified and undisputed champions in every weight class. That's what I want to see as a boxing fan. I care about what a fighter's doing in his division. Did he take on all the champions? Did he clean out the division before moving off, etc.? That's what I look at. All this go into one division, pick up a belt, go into another division, pick up a belt. Oh, hey, I'm pound for pound number one. I don't really care about all of that. If you're truly going to claim, lay claim to pound for pound, in my opinion, I think whatever division you fight in, you should become unified champion and undisputed champion, clean out the division and then move on. Not just go, I'll go into that division, fight that champion, take his belt, and then I'll go into another division, fight that champion, take his belt, go into, I don't agree with all that. I personally want to see unified and undisputed champions in every weight class. That's just how I see it. This year I was hoping that Lomachenko might go in the direction of unifying all the belts at 130 pounds and becoming undisputed champion, then moving off. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. That's not the plan that his team's got for him, his handlers have for him. It looks like he's set to move up to 135 pounds, and I think it's a good fight. If at least he's not going in there and picking someone easy. Linares is a good fighter. Is he one of the best fighters on the planet? Probably not. He is beatable. There's no doubt about that. I think their styles are pretty similar in the sense that they're both, they both got fast hands, good football movement, throw punches in bunches. They're both exciting fighters, so it won't be a boring matchup. Hopefully, both fighters have good ring intelligence. I think it'll be a really good fight and enjoyable fight to watch. However, there is a bit of an issue. An article again on boxingscene.com. Shout out to them. From yesterday, where Mauricio Sulaiman, the president of the WBC, has confirmed that the WBC are mandating a fight between Jorge Linares and Mikey Garcia. Now, as you know, Mikey Garcia is due to challenge for the IBF 140 pound title against Sergey Lipinets. Now, should he come through that, and if he wins that fight, he will, or after that fight, he will have to drop back down to 135 pounds, where he is still the WBC champion, world champion, to face Jorge Linares, who's the WBC diamond belt holder. So, Mauricio Sulaiman is quite, from what I understand, is he's standing firm on this. The WBC are standing firm on this. That will be the next fight. Will be between Linares and Mikey Garcia. They've ordered it. They've mandated it. It has to happen apparently. So if Mikey Garcia wants to keep hold of that 135 pound title, he will have to fight Linares next, and Linares will have to take up that challenge. Which means, if that is the case, and the WBC are going to stay firm and stick to what they're saying, we won't be able to see Linares and Lomachenko next. However, you never know. You know what it's like in boxing. Golden Boy and Top Rank talk to the WBC, and then they come up with an idea, and they can still make the fight. The way I look at it, it could possibly go this way, where Mauricio Sulaiman and WBC turn around and say, well, I'll tell you what, okay, we'll allow Linares to fight Lomachenko, but the winner of that fight must fight Mikey Garcia next. Yeah, that's a potential. That's what potentially could happen here, where the WBC say, yeah, all right, fine. You know what? We won't mandate that fight now between Mikey Garcia and Linares. What we will do is we'll get Lomachenko. We'll allow Lomachenko to face Linares for his WBC diamond belt, and the winner of that fight then must go on and fight Mikey Garcia. I could see that happening, to be honest with you. Either way, if that happens or it doesn't happen, we've got a great fight going on. Whether we see Lomachenko versus Linares, or whether we see Linares versus Mikey Garcia, or whether we see the winner of Linares and Lomachenko versus Mikey Garcia, either way, we've got a couple of great fights potentially set up. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's great. I will keep you updated with the negotiation sides, in terms of the negotiations, between Linares, Lomachenko, and, the WBC and all this sort of stuff. But I think it's a great fight. I think it's definitely something that I want to see, all boxing fans want to see out there. It's a great test for Lomachenko. It's a great test for Linares as well. And let's just hope the fight can be agreed upon and made and finalised. There's no real confirmation in terms of the fight itself has been made. This is just me confirming that the two parties, Top Rank and Golden Boy, are talking to each other about Linares versus Lomachenko, and there is a little bit of a spanner in the works, but I'm sure there's a way of working a way around that. Now, let's just say that the WBC don't budge and they stand firm that Mikey Garcia must fight Jorge Linares. Golden Boy themselves have turned around and said if they can't make a fight for late May is where they're looking at in terms of making Linares versus Lomachenko. I should have mentioned that earlier on. Then they've also turned around and said that, well, if we can't make the fight with Lomachenko, we can always go the way of Mikey Garcia. And let's just say that fight happens, that the WBC do mandate that fight and they say, no, we're not giving any passes here, Mikey Garcia, Linares must happen, what are the options then for Lomachenko? Well, Ray Beltran is fighting Paulus Moses for the vacant WBO 135 pound title. I believe it's on Friday night this week, on the 16th. He'll be facing Moses for that vacant WBO title, and he has turned around and says that he would happily step into the ring with Lomachenko. He says he's a very good fighter. He's not God, but he's a very good fighter. So he feels quite confident that if he gets past and picks up that world title, he's happy to go on and take Lomachenko. And that's another good fight for Lomachenko, in my opinion. Ray Beltran, solid fighter, good fighter, experienced fighter as well. So he's, there's another opportunity for Lomachenko to fight at 135 pound if that's what they're going to stick to. I mean, it's another good fight, in terms of the sense of introducing Lomachenko to the 135 pound division. On the back of that, Miguel Belchit has defended his title recently, and he has stated that he's interested in fighting Lomachenko at 130 pounds. But I don't see that one happening, and that's simply because Top Rank clearly have outlined their plan for Lomachenko this year, which is to move up to 135 pounds. They're clearly not interested in taking any more fights at 130. I don't see that happening. I don't mean that in a bad way, but what I'm trying to say is they clearly have a plan, and they're outlining that plan for Lomachenko, which is to move onwards and upwards to 135 pounds. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing the fight against Belchit between Lomachenko, but it clearly isn't in Top Rank's plans to do so. But I will try and keep you up to date with all of this, guys. I think I've talked about it enough. So let's move on to the next subject. Okay, so let's get started anyway with Canelo versus Triple G happening, rematch, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo weekend. I mean, finally, they've agreed terms, signed the contract, all that sort of stuff. Confirmed it all by, getting The Rock on social media, doing a video and announcing the fight, the rematch, etc. and stuff like that. Now, what I want to really talk about in terms of this fight at the moment, I don't want to do any predictions. I'll talk about how I think the fight's going to go. Look, some people thought the decision was wrong. Some people felt Triple G just edged the fight and won it by a round or two. Some people think Canelo won the fight by a round or two. Me personally, and some other people as well out there who probably agree with me, thought it was a draw. Some people think it was an outright robbery and think, Triple G was completely robbed on the night, etc. That's the one thing I probably disagree completely. I think it was a close fight. It could have gone either way, and I score it personally draw. If you're someone who said, I think it went 1 or 2 rounds Triple G's way or 1 or 2 rounds Canelo's way, I wouldn't disagree with you too much. Kind of like Kovalev Ward won the first fight. It could have gone either way in my opinion. But what I want to talk about on this one is Teddy Atlas in the last few weeks has given his opinion on who he thinks is going to win the rematch and how he feels the rematch is going to go. And before I go into what I want to talk about and give you my opinion on this, I'm just going to play you a quick audio of Teddy Atlas and what he had to say. And it's only a short part, not the whole interview, just a little bit, yeah?
In the rematch, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to pick Canelo because he is slipping. There's no doubt about it. He's slipping, Golovkin being he. And Canelo's got more upside. He's the younger guy. He's going to gain confidence from this one. He wasn't sure if he could handle the size and the strength. Now he is sure he can handle it. And I think he's going to be more consistent from an offensive standpoint in this rematch. And I think Canelo will win the fight. And he might win the fight easy.
Didn't in your mind, didn't Triple G get old the night he beat Danny Jacobs in Brooklyn? Didn't he start?
I don't know if he got old at that moment, but yes, as I just said a few minutes ago, I think he's been slipping. I think he's been slipping for a while, but I also have to qualify that by saying that I also thought he was overrated. So how much is his slippage and how much is it him being...
Now, the part that I want to touch on, in terms of what Teddy Atlas has just said there, is basically, you know, where he was a question was put to him there regarding, didn't you say that you know, Triple G got old on the night that he fought Daniel Jacobs? And he's just turned around and said, you know, not. He goes, I don't know whether it's old, but he's definitely slipping. And I also said he was overrated before the fight. I think Triple G is a good fighter. Don't get me wrong. I do. You know, I've got nothing against Triple G, but a lot of people are using or are really using this point to say, is the best way to say it, is that Triple G, you know, is getting old. That's why he's going 12 rounds with these guys. You know, he's not the fighter he used to. He's lost a step because he's getting older now. Me, I personally don't agree with that. Yeah, and I've said this before when I did a video. I did like a lengthy video on the middleweight division, and I said it then. I'm going to say it now. In my opinion, Triple G has not got old. He hasn't had tough. Before the Daniel Jacobs fight, there weren't really tough fights that he had. He was dominating everyone in the middleweight division, knocking everyone out. But at the same time, right up to Kell Brook, he was fighting nothing but C-class fighters. There was no real competition in the middleweight division. That's not Triple G's fault, don't get me wrong. You know, he can only fight whoever's put in front of him. He can only fight who's in his division. He can only fight who's in and around him at that time. And at that time, the competition in the middleweight division was not good. It was not stacked with talent, you know, with A-class, A-list fighters. Yeah, it had, you know, it had average fighters in there. And that's why he was looking so great, knocking people out left, right and centre and all that sort of stuff. Then he goes up against Daniel Jacobs, who at that time was, I believe, was holding the WBA regular world title. Okay, Daniel Jacobs is a different makeup compared to the guys he fought up in the past. Meaning, he's a determined individual. He's a skilled boxer. He's an A-class elite fighter in that division. Whether you want to admit that or not, that's the facts. He proved that against Triple G, but in terms of the performance he put, it was a close fight. And in my opinion, what's happened is that Triple G has gone on fighting these C-class fighters. You look at his record, they are C-class fighters. None of them are a world elite fighters or the best of the best in the sport of boxing. And he's gone along fighting these guys, and then suddenly, you know, he comes across Daniel Jacobs. And Daniel Jacobs is on a different level to the guys that he's fought in the past. And that's why the fight went 12 rounds. You know, don't get me wrong. You know, people need to stop thinking that Triple G, you can't expect Triple G basically to go around knocking everyone out. It's not going to happen. You can't do that throughout your whole career. It's not realistic to think like that. You know, but instead of saying, oh, you know what? Triple G actually beat a tougher opponent. This is his toughest opponent ever, and it was a tough fight. That's why he was unable to knock him out, because he's gone up against a real tough opponent. And well done to him for getting that result. People started making excuses. Oh, it's because he's getting old. Oh, because Daniel Jacobs didn't do the weigh-in, you know, on the day of the fight for the IBF. You know, he didn't fight for the IBF title, etc., etc. There's all these excuses. You know, like I said, he's getting old and all this sort of stuff. Look, it's not because he's getting old. It's because the level of competition he is now facing is better. Yeah, he's going against the top boys. You look at the middleweight division now, you've got Daniel Jacobs, Jermall Charlo, Billy Joe Saunders finally, you know, he's developed some confidence and some courage now to want to take on the best in the division. You've got Canelo in the division as well. You've got Demetrius Andrade in the division as well now. You know, there's more talent, you know, more top fighters, you know, in the middleweight division than there were before. And that's why he's going these 12 rounds. Canelo, again, he's gone up against an A-list superstar there. You know, that's why he went 12 rounds. Because he went up against someone who's got the same mentality as he has, which is, I'm not going to lose, I'm going to beat you. Yeah? So in my opinion, he hasn't got old. Yeah? He isn't slipping like Teddy Atlas is saying. In my opinion, he's just going up against much, much better competition. Yeah? Better fighters. You know, before he was going up against C-class fighters right up to Kell Brook, not his fault. You know, there wasn't a lot of competition in the middleweight division in terms of top competition. But now there is, and now he's stepping in the ring with those guys. He's finding those fights to be tougher. And he's having to work and grind and get a result sometimes. So all this stuff about he's getting old, he's slipping, no, it's nonsense. In my opinion, it's nonsense. I think he's just going up against better fighters, and you should give him credit for that. You should turn around and say, if you felt he beat Daniel Jacobs, I thought it was a close fight, it could have gone either way. But even if you felt he edged that fight, you should be saying, look, man, that was a tough fight, and look, Triple G still got through it. There's nothing wrong with that. So I don't understand why people feel there's need. No, we got to protect it. We got to make a reason as to why he's not knocking people out now. You know, it's not realistic. No fighter in their career can go their whole fight knocking everyone out, even the A-class fighters in their division. It's just not going to happen. And that's my opinion on that, on what Teddy Atlas has just said there, and what people out there, you know, in general, boxing fans, other channels, media, etc. are talking about. In my opinion, he's not got old. He's just going up against better quality of competition and better fighters who have the same mentality as he does. Now, like I said, I'm not going to make any predictions right now regarding Canelo Triple G. I'll do a separate video for that. One of the things is that they're both promising for their rematch is that they're going to knock each other out. You know, Canelo saying, you know, you've probably seen the promos. You know, don't worry about the judges. You know, I'm going to knock you out, Triple G, and Triple G saying, yeah, you know, don't worry about the judges, you know, etc. I'm going to do it as well, and all this sort of talk about knocking each other out. Look, the way I look at it, these two guys couldn't knock each other out in the first fight. Okay, they hit each other with some hard, clean shots to the face, to the chin, and they both withstood each other's power. I don't see a knockout in the rematch. I see that this will again go to the scorecards, and again it will be left up to the judges. You know, I honestly don't see, I'll be very surprised if we see a knockout in this fight, in my personal opinion. I'm sure other people are going to say, think otherwise, but I don't think we're going to see a knockout here at all. I think it will go to the scorecard and end up in the hands of the judges again. Personally, that's just the way I see it. Now, on the back of that, Tom Loeffler, promoter to Triple G, has stated that there's no rematch clause in place for Canelo versus Triple G 2. Okay, he's basically turned around and said, in short, there's no rematch clause in place, and the winner can go off and fight whoever they want. They're not tied into any clauses, any rematch clauses. And what they've said is that, what he's turned around and said is that basically that when Triple G beats Canelo, because he's quite confident of that, he can go off and fight whoever he wants. They're not tied in with each other after this fight, after their rematch. So basically, Tom Loeffler has turned around and said that they will pursue a unification fight with WBO champion Billy Joe Saunders. Now, a bit of a problem there with that. As far as I understand, the WBC have mandated that the winner of Triple G versus Canelo will face the WBC mandatory challenger Jermall Charlo. And that's, you know, before they were saying, you know, he was the mandatory challenger after the first fight, and then obviously the WBC said, well, hold on, let's have Triple G Canelo 2 because we need to see that fight, and then the winner will face Jermall Charlo. Obviously, if Canelo was to beat Triple G, if Canelo was to beat Triple G, we still wouldn't see Canelo versus Jermall Charlo, because Canelo does not recognise the WBC as a boxing authority. Now, we all know Canelo's had his issues with the WBC, where he, you know, a couple of years ago he had to vacate the belt because they were trying to force and pressure him to fight Triple G back then. He was putting it down, the reason the fight couldn't happen because he had legality issues with his former management team, etc. and stuff. Like, you all should know this anyway. But he doesn't recognise the WBC. He wants nothing to do with the WBC or their belts. He made that quite clear when he fought Chavez Jr. When they made that special Cinco de Mayo belt. Do you remember? And he didn't accept that belt. They had to auction it off. They had to auction that belt off because he wouldn't accept it. And even for the first fight against Triple G, the WBC belt wasn't on the line because Canelo, and because, you know, even if it was on the line, Canelo wouldn't have accepted. He would have just given it back. So that means on the back of that, even if Canelo wins the fight against Triple G, we're still not going to see Jermall Charlo versus Canelo for the WBC belt. It's just not going to happen. Now, the thing I find about this is that with Tom Loeffler, you know, with what he said. I personally think, the first thing I thought he would have said would be, well, there's no rematch clause in place, so we can go on and fight whoever we want. So what we need to do first is tackle our issue with the WBC mandatory challenger Jermall Charlo, get him out of the way, and then we're going to go on to Billy Joe Saunders and unify the division and become undisputed champion. That's what you would expect to hear from him. But instead, he's kind of not even mentioned Jermall Charlo, going right past it and said, we're going to unify with Billy Joe Saunders. And it makes me think, well, where does that leave Jermall Charlo then? And at the time, it kind of makes me think like, it seems like a little dodge. He's your mandatory challenger. That's what the WBC have stated. You can't avoid him. For how long can you avoid him? It sounds like to me that what they want to do is they want to go on and fight Billy Joe Saunders, hopefully beat Billy Joe Saunders, take the WBO belt off him, unify and become undisputed champions, and then turn around and say, right, okay, I'm going to vacate all the belts and we're going to move up to 160 pounds. Or he'll turn around and say, Triple G, well, that's it, I've done everything, I've achieved all my goals that I wanted to do, I'm now retiring from boxing. Because there has been small talks, over the past few months about Triple G perhaps retiring at some point soon, and even whispers of him again, and it's not the first time he said this, moving up to 168 pounds. So to me it sounds like a little bit of a dodge, if you ask me. That's just my personal opinion. They quite clearly don't. It feels like that. I'm not going to accuse, but I'm just going to turn around and say that it feels like they don't want anything to do with Jermall Charlo. And you could turn around and say, yeah, what has Jermall Charlo done at 160, etc., who's he fought and all that. So you can say that all you want. Fine, valid points. But at the same time, the WBC have made him the mandatory challenger for their WBC world title at middleweight, and they've mandated it as the next fight. So you either fight him or you get stripped of your belt. That's the way I see it. So, unless the WBC say, well, okay, we'll let him fight Billy Joe Saunders, and this is where the problem lies. A lot of people will say, well, hold on, the WBC might turn around and say, and give another exemption, and turn around and say, well, okay, we'll allow for Triple G to fight Billy Joe Saunders, and then the winner must fight Jermall Charlo. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But then at that point, Triple G, if he wins, he could turn around and say, well, I'm moving up to 160 pounds now, or I'm retiring, whichever it is. And we still won't see Triple G versus Jermall Charlo. Do you get what I'm trying to say? It just sounds all a little bit funny to me, a little bit dodge. We'll just have to wait and see what happens and how it all works out. First we got to get Triple G and Canelo 2 out of the way and see who's going to win that fight, which one of them is going to prevail as the winner and the unified champion, middleweight champion. But yeah, it sounds a bit off and iffy to me. It sounds a bit, it sounds like a dodge. Plain and simple. I can only say things how I see it, and I'm quite black and white and straightforward with things, and that's the way it looks like to me. It might upset a few people what I'm saying. I'm sure it will. I get a lot of abuse and hate on my videos sometimes, but the truth is the truth when it's staring you in the face. Simple as that. Another thing I'm just going to add to that is a lot of people are, like I said, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, where a lot of people are saying, well, what has Jermall Charlo done at 160? What does he bring to the table? He hasn't fought anyone. Or some people are saying like, oh, that's an easy fight, why would Triple G take that fight, there's no point in fighting him, etc. If that's the case and he's your mandatory challenger, then if it's an easy fight, take the fight, get him out of the way and go on to Billy Joe Saunders. I mean, Triple G's had no issues fighting his mandatory challengers in the past, so what's the issue now? I don't understand it. And some of those guys weren't even high profile, I suppose, in a sense, like Jermall Charlo. Jermall Charlo is a well-known name in boxing. If you follow boxing enough, you'll know who he is. Maybe not to the casual fan, but if you're a boxing fan, you will know who Jermall Charlo is. So I don't see what the issue is. Look, I think he should just get it out of the way and then move on. But like I said, clearly it seems they have no interest in entertaining Jermall Charlo. That's just the way it looks and feels at the moment. I could be wrong, but that's how it feels. Okay, so sticking to the middleweight division, let's just quickly talk about Billy Joe Saunders and Daniel Jacobs. Billy Joe Saunders recently has come out and said basically that if Daniel Jacobs really wanted to fight him, Daniel Jacobs would not have signed with promoter Eddie Hearn. Now, a lot of you people, if you're not from the UK, you may not know this. There's a bit of rivalry between the two top promoters here in the UK, Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren. There's a lot of talk, that these two guys, can't work together as promoters, or they can't make a fight, etc. and stuff like that. Now, there's truth to that to a degree, to be honest with you. I don't honestly believe that for that reason you should allow the opportunity for a great fight to pass us by, because two promoters can't get past their ego and work with each other personally. But I personally think if they really wanted to make that fight could be made. Regardless of who Daniel Jacobs' promoter is. I don't agree with Billy Joe Saunders, what he said there. Sounds like a bit of a cop-out. I think personally Billy Joe... it's really disappointing because I've actually praised Billy Joe Saunders a lot lately, especially his performance against... I thought he did really well against Willie Monroe Jr. and then it was a masterclass against David Lemieux. I don't think anyone can doubt that, and even the HBO, commentators like Max Kellerman were like, I was wondering how Billy Joe, after the Lemieux fight, wondering how the fight with Triple G or Canelo would go now with Billy Joe Saunders after he showcased to us what he can do, which he's very talented. We know that Billy Joe Saunders is a very, very good boxer. He's proven that now. He's taken his life a lot serious, his career a lot serious, shall I say. Before he would, fight, and then go out drinking and eating the pies and putting the weight on, not living the fighter's life, and now he's living the fighter's life and staying quite disciplined and very motivated. But on the back of that, I'm a bit disappointed with what he's saying here, because in the day, if you as a fighter, if you really want a fight and to fight someone, and you really want a particular fight, you can push it with your promoter. Literally demand it, that I want that guy next, make the fight happen. Yeah. Loads of fighters say that. I remember Lennox Lewis once even saying that years ago. I heard him in an interview. He says, if you're, as a fighter, if you really want to fight, you just push it with your promoter and you get the fight and you make it happen. It will happen if you really want it to happen. And I get the feeling with Billy Joe Saunders, he really wants the winner of Canelo versus Triple G. He's already stated quite clearly that if he had to pick which one he wants to fight, it would be Triple G, because that's the one he really wants. I think, he's fighting Martin Murray, I think in March is it now again. That's a stay busy, keep busy fight. Like Martin Murray, yeah, okay, he's a good solid fighter, but I don't think he's going to beat Billy Joe Saunders. I think Saunders will win that fight. But it sounds like to me like Billy Joe Saunders, is making reasons as to not to fight Jacobs here. It just sounds like that now. Earlier on, I did a video in the past where I talked about, Billy Joe Saunders demanding $5 million or pounds or whatever it was to fight Daniel Jacobs, because Daniel Jacobs doesn't sell, etc. in the US and stuff like this. And I probably kind of backed him a little bit in there, but then now when I'm listening to this as well, I'm thinking more and more it just sounds like you just don't want the fight. Daniel Jacobs' team have turned around and basically said, sounds like a cop-out, exactly what I've just said, that if Billy Joe Saunders really wants to fight, we can make the fight, and they basically feel that Billy Joe Saunders is hiding behind his promoter, Frank Warren. Look, I think I've said enough on this subject. If you want the fight, the fight's there, make the fight. Get your promoters to get past their egos. But at the same time, maybe it also sounds like an excuse as well a little bit, that he doesn't want anything to do with Daniel Jacobs at the moment, because I suppose he's worried that if he fights Daniel Jacobs, and Daniel Jacobs is a serious contender at middleweight, we know that, it's a risky fight, because if he loses, there goes his opportunity to face the winner of Triple G Canelo 2. So, do you get what I mean? And then Daniel Jacobs is in the driving seat. So it just puts his plans on the back foot. And I'm guessing, I suppose no fighter is really going to do it, but, do what I'm going to suggest. But you're better off putting your hand up, say, listen, mate, yeah, I do want to fight you someday. I'm not saying I don't want to. Right now, though, I want the winner of Triple G Canelo. So I'm going to have this stay busy fight with Martin Murray, and then I'm going to wait to see what happens in that fight, and then I'm going to call out the champ, on the other side, and face them, and then once I've done that, if I get through that, you and me, we can get it on. But no fight is really going to do that. I've said this in it before. No fight is going to admit that they're avoiding another fighter for whatever reason. But I think Billy Joe Saunders just needs to stop talking about Daniel Jacobs at all. Just stop talking about it. Because the more and more he talks, the more and more it just sounds like right now he doesn't want to step in the ring with Daniel Jacobs. He doesn't want anything to do with him just at this moment in time. I mean, there's a lot of other channels out there who have talked about this too, and some of those channels are turning around and saying, well, they won't accept the excuse of, the promoters aren't willing to work together, and, it's difficult to make the fight because of these promoters, they don't get along, etc. That's why the fight between Billy Joe Saunders and Daniel Jacobs can't be made. But they've turned around and said, oh well, you should boycott those promoters then, and not watch their cards, and not watch their fights, and not support their fighters if that's the case. Otherwise, we'll never get the fights that get made. Let's be realistic, no one's going to do that. Okay. And there's a reason why I'm actually talking about this particular point here. It's because it kind of ties into the next subject I'm going to go into the next topic. So on that note, let's move on. Okay, so Glenn Rushton, Jeff Horn's trainer, has recently stated that if Jeff Horn beats Terence Crawford in their up-and-coming WBO world title fight, that will mean Jeff Horn is pound for pound best. That's all he said. In his thing, he didn't say is the pound for pound best, but I guess he means he will be regarded and classed as pound for pound in the sport of boxing. Okay, I'm gonna give my take on this. This is why I don't do pound for pound. This is one of the many reasons I don't do pound for pound. I talked about this earlier on. It's because I feel one of the reasons, I'm going to give it to you now, why I don't do pound for pound is because I feel it's a way for trainers, promoters, fighters and broadcasters to, in my opinion, manipulate uneducated fight fans into believing that a certain fighter of theirs is pound for pound number one, or one of the pound for pound best on the planet. You beat Manny Pacquiao in a close fight. Now a lot of people think Manny Pacquiao won the fight. A lot of people think Jeff Horn won the fight. There's mixed feelings on it. A lot of people think Pacquiao was robbed. I personally thought it was a very close fight, which could have gone either way. Okay, but I don't want to get into the debate of who won, how, etc. and stuff like that. You beat. Alright, hats off to you. You got a decision and you beat an aging legend in Manny Pacquiao, and you're now going to go on and fight finally an in-prime champion, or former undisputed champion at 140 pounds, Terence Crawford. Some people consider him to be number 2 or number 3 pound for pound, the best on the planet. Former unified champion at 135 pound. He's young, he's hungry. You're going up against a different class of fighter, but even if you beat Terence Crawford, and just for the record, I don't believe Jeff Horn beats Terence Crawford. I think Crawford will beat Horn, no doubt, in my opinion. But let's say you do beat him, okay? Just because you beat a Manny Pacquiao, an aging Manny Pacquiao, and then a Terence Crawford, you've had one in prime fight against one top elite fighter in terms of in prime, in terms of Terence Crawford, doesn't make you pound for pound. You haven't even fought anyone else. You go and fight Errol Spence, beat him, beat Keith Thurman, beat Danny Garcia, beat Sean Porter, okay? And then I'd probably consider you probably the best welterweight on the planet. But then you would have to go on to another division, in my opinion, and do the same again. So go move up to 154 and do it all again. And then if you were to do that again, unify, become undisputed at 154, then I would probably consider you for pound status. But to just turn around and say, I beat Manny Pacquiao, I beat Terence Crawford, I'm pound for pound now. No. Sorry, I don't agree with that. I think it's a joke, to be honest with you. Again, this is a clear example of why I don't do pound for pound. I think it's a waste of time most of the time, because pound for pound is subjective. It's also at times culturally biased. There's like I just said, promoters, fighters, trainers, etc. Broadcasters use it as a marketing gimmick to sell their fighter to the uneducated boxing fan, the casual boxing fan who run with it. So that's why I don't waste my time with pound for pound. But I totally disagree with what his trainer has just said there. There's no way Jeff Hearn, even if he beats Terence Crawford, will be on that pound for pound list for me personally. Okay, so as we're on the subject of Hearn versus Crawford, it's been announced that Manny Pacquiao will be on the undercard for that fight. Seen a lot of people. Some people think that this is a little bit disrespectful to Manny Pacquiao, being that he's a legend of the sport with everything he's achieved, and to see him not having his own main event, that he's got to sit there as a undercard for the main event, which would be Hearn versus Crawford. Some people are seeing that as disrespectful. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I could be not disrespectful, but you'd think Manny Pacquiao would be the main event on his own card, kind of thing. But look, that's how it looks like it's going to turn out. That Manny Pacquiao is going to be, on the undercard for that fight. To be fair, that card itself will probably sell a lot more just because Manny Pacquiao is on there. Regardless of the fact that he's on the undercard, people will still treat that as the main event for them, if that makes sense. Because everyone will tune in for that card. So I suppose from Top Rank and ESPN's point of view, it's probably from a business point of view, it's a good move. An article came out today where obviously they've been talking about potential opponents for Manny Pacquiao on that card. Manny Pacquiao has come out, there's an article on boxingscene.com where he's been talking to media in Manila in the Philippines, where he's turned around and says he likes the fight against Lucas Matisse. Freddie Roach has already previously said that he likes that fight. It's an action-packed fight. He likes the sound of that. And obviously Manny Pacquiao seems like he's interested. He said that fight can happen in April or May. So I'm guessing Top Rank will look to make a fight potentially with Lucas Matisse, I reckon. I'm not saying this is not confirmed or anything like that. I'm just giving you my opinion on the back of what Manny Pacquiao has said. That they'll probably look to make that fight, for the undercard of Jeff Hearn versus Terence Crawford. Okay, so let's talk about probably the hottest topic when it comes to the welterweight division, and in one of the hottest topics in boxing at the moment. Keith one-time Thurman versus Errol Spence Jr. Now, Keith Thurman, a couple of weeks ago, after the I think it's a couple of weeks ago now, after the press conference from Showtime announcing what their first half of 2018 was going to look like in terms of boxing and all the fights that they had scheduled. They had all the fighters that were there. They all stepped on the stage, etc., and stuff like that. It was quite good the way they did it, to be honest with you. Really excited because the first 6 months looks great from Showtime's point of view, and obviously what other promoters and broadcasters will be doing across that period of time as well. So there's plenty of fights going on. We already know that. But after the press conference with YouTubers and stuff like that, YouTube channels, Keith Thurman was doing interviews. One of them he did was with Radio Raheem on Seconds Out, and basically what he said was that when it comes to Errol Spence Jr, he feels he needs a tune-up. He then feels he needs to take care of his mandatory challenger, which is Sean Porter, for his WBC belt, but also that's a competitive fight. And then he says even potentially he may need a fight against Danny Garcia. Now, a rematch against Danny Garcia, another warm-up, another competitive fights before taking on Errol Spence Jr in 2019. Now, I've said this in my welterweight video, and I've also said it in another recent video I did on Spence and Thurman. And basically, I'm going to keep saying it. Keith Thurman, I don't think is scared of Errol Spence Jr like everyone says, and I'm not going to accuse him of ducking, not yet anyway. All right. I personally believe Keith Thurman, is lacking in confidence or belief due to the elbow injury he suffered. Now, you got to remember, he's had 12 months off, he's got married, he's done a lot of things, but in that time he had a serious injury as well, which kept him out of action. Okay? I believe he's not fully confident with that yet. Yeah, he hasn't had a choice. He needs his tune-up fight first. I don't think anyone out there will disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. He needs a tune-up fight. Obviously Jesse Vargas has recently come out and basically called him a coward, saying that how can you be a champion? You should let go of the belts if you're not going to fight the best or the top ranked fighters out there. But at the same time, I did say when there was rumours that Jesse Vargas was going to be his tune-up fight, and apparently even Keith Thurman himself has said that in a video. I was like, really? Jesse Vargas as a tune-up fight? Ggg Vargas might not be the best welterweight out there, but he is a dangerous fighter because he's highly ranked, and he is a good fighter. He has power, etc. That's not a tune-up fight. You need an easy fight against, you know, a lower ranked fighter. You know, I would not advise that. And it seems like they pulled out of it now because that fight doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Because when on the Showtime press conference, when they were announcing all these fights, they just said that Keith Thurman was going to fight. I think it is May 19th. So definitely no fight with Ggg Vargas. Okay, but my point, going back to the whole Spence thing, is that Keith Thurman, to me, clearly he's not confident with his injury. Yeah, and it happens. You got to get into the psyche of a fighter. A fighter is never going to admit he's ducking a fighter or avoiding a fighter. A fighter is never going to say, right now I'm not very confident to take on Errol Spence. He's not going to use these specific words. Yeah, no fighter is ever going to do that. Okay, what he will try to say is, oh, I need a tune-up fight just to feel out the injury, and then I might need another competitive fight, and then, you know, we need to let the fight, you know, marinate and all that sort of stuff. You know, anything else, but they're going to say, I don't want to fight him just yet. You know, they're never going to say it that way. They'll say it subtly in their own way when you listen to how fighters think. And getting into his psyche right now, and I've done that because I did think, like, I did a video months ago, I think it was, where I said I think by end of 2018 we could see Thurman versus Spence. But then I stopped and thought, well, hold on, let's get into his head. What is this fighter particular fighter thinking right now? Which is, he's quite clearly, he needs to feel it out in a tune-up fight. Okay, knock off the ring rust as well, see how that elbow's holding up. He's still nursing the injury from what I understand as well. So there, there are issues still there. So why would you want, as a boxing fan, why would you want Keith Thurman, who's not fully 100%, no fighter's ever 100%, don't get me wrong, but you want to get to 90 or 95% physically, because no fighter goes into a fight 100%. They all go in there with niggles and pulls and strains, don't get me wrong. But you want him as close to 100% when he goes up against Errol Spence Jr. Because all you'll get then is a Thurman fans turning around and saying, well, you know, we know Thurman wasn't, you know, hadn't fully healed from his injury, and that's why Errol Spence beat him, etc. You don't want that. You want a fully fit or close to fully fit Thurman going in the ring against Errol Spence Jr. In my opinion, I know I do. That's what I would like to see. So yeah, although it's frustrating that I have to wait to 2019 to see that fight, I would rather see the very best version of Keith Thurman take on the very best version of Errol Spence Jr. Now don't get me wrong, the risk in that is that Thurman or even Spence could lose in that time and we'll never see the fight. Yeah, I understand that, but you have to get into the psychological side of that particular fighter, which is Thurman at this moment in time. He clearly isn't confident going into a fight with Spence with this niggling injury that he's still got. You know, until he feels confident with it and he thinks, well, you know, a tune-up fight is what I need. A fight against Sean Porter, a competitive fight against Sean Porter will prepare me well, and maybe even a rematch against Danny Garcia. That will probably help as well, get me ready for Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr., in my opinion, I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think he's going to lose anytime soon. Just needs to keep doing what he needs to be doing, you know, which is keep fighting, keep winning. You know, I don't think there's many welterweights out there that actually will beat him. I think the two best welterweights on the planet are definitely Thurman and then Spence. And depending on what we see happen with Crawford, you know, because we've still got to see what Crawford can do at 147. We know what he can do at 140. We know what he can do at 135. Tremendous fighter, no doubt about it. But at the same time, we still got to see he's going into a new division, more competitors and more contenders at welterweight than there were at 140, top contenders than there were at 140 and 135. So we have to see how he handles that. But if he handles it well and comes through all of that, I think Terence Crawford could potentially be, you know, the other name at welterweight, mixing it up to become undisputed champion. They're the three that I think are most likely, you know, to become undisputed champion at welterweight. But in terms of Thurman, I think right now it sounds like to me, and he gave some example of basketball players and stuff like that. You'll have to go and watch it. Go and check it out on Seconds Out on, you know, from Radio Raheem. Shout out to him and to Seconds Out. But at the same time, like I said, you've got to allow Thurman to get himself back into a position. First, let him have his tune-up fight. Get him right. Get himself get the ring rust off, feel out the injury a little bit. You know, he may not even come through that tune-up fight. You never know. Look at James DeGale. I've said that before as well. Caleb Turax was supposed to be a tune-up fight, a fight he was supposed to win to knock off the ring rust. And look what happened there. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So yeah, although it's frustrating having to wait till 2019 or something like that to see that fight, at the same time, you got to understand the psyche of the fighter, and the psyche of Keith Thurman is quite clearly he's not confident, not because he doesn't feel he can beat or compete with Errol Spence Jr. It's because he doesn't feel he's physically in a position to take on that monster of a challenge at this moment in time. So we just have to wait and see. If he fights, he has his tune-up fight, then he goes on fight Porter, and say he does have a rematch against Danny Garcia, another competitive fight to get himself ready for Errol Spence Jr. If at that point around that area, if he doesn't start talking about I want Errol Spence Jr. next, let's make that fight happen, then I will come out and say, hands up, I will say you are ducking Errol Spence Jr. because I want to see that fight too. Really do want to see that fight. Okay, so staying on the subject of Keith Thurman and Errol Spence Jr., I'm just going to divert a little bit from that, but I'm going to come back to it. And Bob Arum recently said to ringtv.com that Crawford versus Spence will be a good fight in a year from now, but it needs time to build. So basically what he said was that would be a great fight for 2019. And I think it's a great fight. You know, I think that's a fight that definitely could be made this year, not 2019. To be honest with you, you can build that. You've got a whole year to build it and make it at the end of 2018. And the reason I'm talking about this and saying what I just said is that I feel there's a lot of channels out there, a lot of fans, a lot of media sources, mainstream media sources as well, who are being a little bit hypocritical and a little bit are showing double standards really, which you see a lot in boxing of course, which is that some of those channels are turning around and saying, oh well, yeah, you know, I agree, that will be a great fight for 2019. What I want to know is why those channels and all these other people, all these individuals out there, not pushing for this fight to happen in 2018 like they're trying to push for Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence Jr. to happen this year, after Keith Thurman has his tune-up fight as well. A lot of them want to see it straight away after the tune-up fight. You know, I don't understand why these channels aren't pushing that agenda. Yeah, let's be honest. Okay, Keith Thurman, like I said, coming off an injury, a year-long layoff, etc., etc. You want him to have his tune-up fight and go straight into a fight with Errol Spence Jr. Now, Bob Arum's saying that, yeah, we can make that fight. Crawford, I definitely think Crawford wants that fight. Errol Spence Jr. will want that fight. I don't think there's any issue from the fighters. But I don't hear people out there trying to push it like they're pushing the Keith Thurman and Errol Spence Jr. topic, if that makes sense. In my opinion, you know, you should be thinking, like, well, okay, we're clearly not going to get Thurman versus Errol Spence Jr. this year because of whatever Keith Thurman's saying or whatever your opinion is of Keith Thurman, etc. Stuff like that. If you think he's ducking and all that sort of stuff, so let's push this agenda. Let's push for Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. at some point this year, 2018. Maybe just after the summer, maybe going into the winter. You know, let's make this fight. You know, what's the issue? You know, a lot of people out there will probably turn around and say to me, oh, well, you know, it's harder to make that fight because of Al Heyman and Bob Arum and all that sort of stuff and the issues they've had in the past. And a lot of those channels will probably say that as well. But at the same time, those same channels are the ones that turned around and said, if you remember earlier on in the video, in this podcast, where they made comments about Billy Joe Saunders, saying that, where fans are saying that the fight between Billy Joe Saunders and Jacobs is tough to make because the promoters don't get along and don't see eye to eye. And those channels have turned around and said, well, then you should boycott those promoters and boycott their cards and their fights and you shouldn't support them. Yeah. So if that's what you're pushing in terms of the Billy Joe Saunders and Daniel Jacobs scenario, then you should be pushing that in terms of Al Heyman and Bob Arum as well, and saying that, well, if these guys can't work together and they can't make a fight that's great for boxing and great for the fans, then we should boycott them. We should boycott their channels. We should boycott their broadcasters. We should boycott their fights, and their fighters. But I'm not hearing that, is the point I'm trying to make. Yeah, I don't see people saying, they just do a little video, yeah, Arum said this, and for 2019, you know, okay, I want to see it, yeah, okay, that makes for a great fight, and that's it. They're not turning around and saying, hold on, why do we have to wait 2019 for that fight? Why can't we have that fight this year as well? You know, Spence, I think, is he fighting in May? I can't remember, I have to go and look at the card that Showtime put up, but I think he's fighting in May or something like that, Spence Jr, or June, sorry, I think it's in June, right? So Crawford's fighting in April. So Crawford fights in April. Spence can fight in June, and then later on in the year we can see Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. If we're not going to get the Keith Thurman fight. Do you see what I'm trying to say? But this is what I'm on about. This is the double standards that I talk about when I watch other YouTube channels and, you know, listen to other videos and what other people are talking about, what the media are saying. You know, they pick and choose which fighters to do this with. If you're going to do it, be consistent and do it with every fighter, or should I say every promoter and every broadcaster. Don't just do it with the ones that you dislike or you have a bias, you have some sort of form of prejudice or bias against. In my opinion, that's the way I see it. Okay, let's move on and talk about these heavyweights now, yeah? So recently Deontay Wilder has caused up a bit of an uproar. It's not really, in my opinion, it's not an uproar, but with other people, it's kind of upset a few individuals and got them irritated a little bit by Deontay Wilder's recent comments that he says that he could beat a 1986 in prime Mike Tyson. Now, just for the record, I don't agree with that. I think Mike Tyson would beat any of a 1986 version of Mike Tyson would beat any of the heavyweights today. That's just my personal opinion. You could disagree with that if you want, but that's the way I see it. Like, don't get me wrong, you know, anything can happen in boxing, but it's a fantasy fight. I just think that Mike would probably beat majority of them, or if not all of them. Yeah. Now, I've seen a lot of comments, right? Okay. Now, Tyson Fury was recently let me just go to Tyson Fury. Now, Tyson Fury, I think on Twitter, was recently asked this question by a fan, and Tyson Fury turned around and said Mike Tyson would knock him out in one. So he would knock him out. Tyson Fury says he would get knocked out by Mike Tyson in the first round. And some people on, you know, social media and videos and stuff like that are saying that, you know, at least Tyson Fury's shown the respect that Mike Tyson deserves, and that what Deontay Wilder said in regards to Mike Tyson was disrespectful. Before I go on, I'm just going to play you this video from Mike Tyson himself. Excuse me, from Mike Tyson himself. And then I'm going to carry on and give my opinion and my thoughts on this topic.
Hey Tyson Fury, I heard you said I'll knock you out if me and you fought. Hey man, you have to have more confidence in yourself, man. Anything can happen in a fight. You see Buster Douglas knock me out, so anything can happen. You have to have more confidence in yourself. And I look forward to seeing you making your comeback, okay buddy? Take care.
Okay, so you heard it there from Iron Mike himself, where he says to Tyson Fury, you need to have a little bit more confidence in yourself, mate. Yeah. Now, basically, what I would say to that is to everyone out there who's saying to Deontay Wilder that Deontay Wilder's been disrespectful, etc., and all that sort of stuff. Sorry, is there's nothing wrong with what Deontay Wilder has said. Nothing wrong with it at all. There's nothing. There's nothing disrespectful about this. You know, end of the day, he's a fighter. He's supposed to have confidence in himself. Whether you believe he would or he wouldn't be able to do it, that doesn't matter. The fact is that he should be confident in himself. And to be fair, I respect it. Yeah, I respect a fighter who has that level of confidence. I don't agree with him. I don't agree with Deontay Wilder, like I've said, but I do respect his confidence and his belief in himself. Okay? And all these people out there jumping around going, oh, it's disrespectful, he's disrespectful, you know, he's being disrespectful to Mike Tyson, the legend, and all this sort of stuff. No, he's not. It's like when people get upset when a fighter says, when Floyd Mayweather said he was better than Muhammad Ali. You know, I'm not saying that I agree with that either, or that, you know, he's proven he's better than Muhammad Ali, etc., and he's the greatest of all time, or whatever, TBE and all that stuff, yeah? Not that I'm saying I agree with that. But there's nothing wrong with a fighter believing in himself and having that level of confidence. You know, that's a fighter needs that as key to any fighter if you want to be successful in this sport. So all those people who are making a big deal out of this, stop it. Because, do you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with what he said. Just like I said, a fighter should be confident. Mike Tyson has just told Tyson Fury, hey man, you should have more confidence in yourself. You know, you should believe in yourself more. You should be saying, basically what he's saying to Tyson Fury is that you should believe that you can beat me at my best. You know, you're a fighter at the end of the day. You're supposed to believe in yourself. You're supposed to have confidence. So, as far as I'm concerned, you know, it's all nonsense, all this stuff where people are saying that Deontay Wilder is being disrespectful to Mike Tyson. That's my take on it. Now, staying on the subject of Deontay Wilder recently came out and said that basically about Anthony Joshua, where he says AJ is not worldwide, he's countrywide, with the UK behind him. But if you want to become a global icon, you need to come see me. Yeah, basically he needs to fight in America. That not enough people in America know who he is. America's a bigger market, and that the two of them need each other, and that this is the biggest fight in boxing at the moment. There's no bigger fight than Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. Now, I don't like it when fighters talk about another fighter when they've got a fight coming up against someone else. So Wilder's got a fight against, obviously, Luis Ortiz on the 3rd of March, and then on the 31st of March we've got Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker. And my take on this, he keeps talking about, you know, I've done a lot of videos on this subject, you know, purse splits and money and who's the A side, who's the B side. In my opinion, I'm not going to disagree with Deontay Wilder on this one. AJ needs America. Okay? Barry Hearn, father to Eddie Hearn, AJ's promoters. So Barry Hearn, in a video with Seconds Out TV on YouTube, basically turned around and said that the hardest market to crack, to break into, is the US market. He said it's the hardest market out there. He himself has turned around and said that. Okay? And he's right, it is the hardest market. Yeah? When you're here in the UK, we've got 65 million, a population of 65 million. Over there, they've got something like, what, 360 million? That's a big market, yeah, to break into. Okay, so basically what I'm going to say here is that I'm going to give you an example, and it's not a boxing example, it's more of a business example in terms of what I'm trying to say. Take someone like Tesco's, for example, yeah? So if you're not from the UK, Tesco's is the biggest supermarket here in the UK. It's the number 2, it's the second biggest retailer after Walmart in the world, right? As far as I know, that's where they still sit. Yeah, okay, could have changed, but anyway. Let's go back a few years. Definitely a few years ago, they were still sitting there. I haven't kept up to date with Tesco's. But let's put it this way. Tesco's had an idea to step into the US market, okay, and take on the mammoth task of Walmart. Yeah, okay, and forget Walmart, just taking on that market, yeah, it's tough. They stepped into there years ago, okay, and they still haven't cracked the US market. Every year they keep breaking even, yeah, they don't really make a profit, yeah, there's no substantial massive growth in that time, I remember. You know, there's a lot of talk about in the media that they've overinvested, that they made the wrong move going to America, they're finding it difficult to crack America because you're a British or an English company, you've got to now adapt and try and understand how the US consumer works. Yeah, what do they like? What do they like in terms of their tastes, their preferences? You know, what do they expect from a company in terms of customer service and all that sort of thing? Completely different. Yeah, it's a completely different way of life. It's not the same as living here in England. Yeah, so you know, they went over there thinking, yeah, we're the big I am. Yeah, it's going to be tough, but don't worry, we'll break through, no doubt it. We've got a great plan. Off they go, and they've struggled ever since. Okay, and a lot of people are going to think, what the hell were you bringing up that for? The reason I'm saying that is because on the back of what Deontay Wilder has said, it's not easy to crack the US market. Yeah, I find it quite surprising that Eddie Hearn, right, that Eddie Hearn he's obviously entered the US market, signed up Daniel Jacobs. He's got a joint agreement, or whatever you want to call it, to work with Jermall Miller. He doesn't control Jermall Miller. It's a co-promotion deal that he has with Jermall Miller, and he basically he's trying to, obviously he's got his foot in the door, and now he wants to try and conquer the US market. Fair play to him. Nothing wrong with that. I don't mind that. But at the same time, I find it surprising that he's not going to take his biggest and best asset in Anthony Joshua, and he doesn't have to go to the US and take AJ there and say, right, let's fight Wilder. But he hasn't taken AJ and thought, well, let's do a card in the US with AJ. You know, let's get him fighting one of the other heavyweights. You know, do we get him to go up against Jermall Miller, etc. You know, and start building his profile even more out in the US. You know, get him to that Lennox Lewis level now. You know, that's the next stage for Anthony Joshua. But they haven't even done that. They even, you know, Eddie Hearn talks about how, you know, you got AJ on billboards or you know, advertising posters up of AJ and stuff like that in New York, and that's great. But some people probably look at it and think, well, okay, who's he? Doesn't necessarily mean people are aware of who he is. You know, sometimes I walk past, you know, a billboard or an advertisement on my way to work, and I'm looking at it, but I don't know who the person. It might be someone who's really famous, a TV actor or whatever it is, but I don't know who they are. Do you know what I mean? You just look at it and think, oh, okay. You know, only the boxing fan, the real boxing fan, is going to look at it and go, oh, look, it's AJ. You know? So, my point being is that, for me, that's not enough to promote a fighter in the US. You've got to be actively going out to the US. You need to start probably fighting a little bit in the US. You know, you want to corner that market. So I do agree with Deontay Wilder on that, to be honest with you. I definitely feel like he doesn't have to go out there and fight Deontay Wilder necessarily, but I feel AJ does need to go out to the States a little bit and maybe have one or two fights there before, or have a fight at least out there, and just kind of build his brand a little bit more, expand on his brand a little bit more. He's massive here in the UK. We know that. Yes, there are people in America who do know who Anthony Joshua is, but not everyone knows who Anthony Joshua is. He's got that global star appeal to him. We know that. So, do you get what I'm trying to say? So, to a degree, I do understand what Deontay Wilder's trying to say, and I do agree with it. I'm not going to lie. And in terms of his point about they need each other, he didn't exactly say, well, he needs me, I don't need him. They need each other. I agree, because every great fighter needs to have a great rival. You know, you look at Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier, and you got Thurman you could throw into that as well. You know, you could. There's loads of examples. You look at Roberto Duran, Leonard, Hearn, Marvin Hagler, etc. You know, Sugar Ray Robinson, Jake LaMotta. You know, there's great examples of that all throughout the sport. I could go on and on. And I think, you know, that adds to your legacy when you have a great rivalry with another fighter. And I think these two could potentially have that. Look, they're both good-looking guys. We know that. Yeah, they're very marketable. You know, they've both got they're in their own way. They've got their own charisma. They've got their own style of going about things, but they carry a lot of, like I said, charisma and confidence. They're very charismatic, and I personally think, you know what, that is a fight I would love to see. I still want to see that fight, AJ versus Wilder. I don't know what everyone's issue is with it. I never have. Go watch my other videos I've done on this if you want more details around my thoughts on it, because I don't want to spend too much time repeating what I've already said in the past. But I think it's a great fight, you know, and I agree with Wilder a little bit, you know, that AJ probably needs to come out of the UK and promote himself in the US, because it is the biggest market, but it's the biggest market to crack. And if he starts kind of chipping away at it a little bit now, along with Matchroom Boxing, it only strengthens their position in the US and strengthens their position when it comes to negotiations. So, in my opinion, you know, I can't say I disagree with Deontay Wilder there. Now, talking about negotiations for Joshua Wilder, Wilder's also, he's been very vocal, because obviously, you know, he's had a media day workout for his build up for his fight against Luis Ortiz. Again, dangerous, because he's kind of, in my opinion, he's kind of looking past Ortiz, which is, yeah, it's confidence, that's good, but at the same time a bit dangerous if you get sidetracked and you're not fully focused. But anyway, in terms of negotiations for that fight, he has turned around and also said that, you know, whatever they offer me, basically he's turned around and said to me, you know, they're the ones making all the money, right? I don't make any money. Yeah, I don't make any money, so how can I make them an offer? Yeah, they're making all the money, so they should make an offer to me. Yeah, they're talking to me about, you know, I haven't heard an offer from him. Well, you're supposed to be the A side, you're supposed to be the big guns, yeah, you're supposed to make me an offer. But he's turned around and said, whatever offer you make me, you have to agree to take in the rematch. That's how confident Deontay Wilder says he is at beating Anthony Joshua. So basically, if Eddie Hearn says, right, we're offering you 80-20, yeah, what he's saying is that, okay, I'll take that 80-20, but in the rematch, when I beat your boy, and I will beat him, when I beat your boy, he's got to take the same deal in return, which means in the rematch, Deontay Wilder, say if he won, would get 80%, and Anthony Joshua will only get 20. He goes, let's do it, you know. Another thing saying it, another thing it actually happening, because you know what, there's promoters, there's broadcasters, there's a lot of money involved, so whether that would actually happen is another thing altogether. But that's what he's turned around and said to Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn. I don't know whether that would actually sit well with the promoters and the broadcasters and the managers, but he said it very confidently. So, but look, I think I've talked about them putting a golden goose in the rematch. Yeah, basically, you know, I've made videos where I've turned around and said, like, look, let's make it, give Deontay Wilder, you know, 60-40 or something like that. And I mean 40% to Deontay Wilder, not 60 to AJ, 40 to Deontay Wilder is what I'm trying to say there. And then turn around and say, let's put a massive golden goose in the rematch clause. Whoever loses will have to take a very small percentage in the rematch, like 15-20%. And the winner gets 80, you know, 85% of the rematch. Do you know what I mean? But, you know, we'll have to wait and see how it pans out. First Deontay Wilder's got to get past Luis Ortiz. Anthony Joshua needs to get past Joseph Parker, but it's an interesting proposition. And but the thing is, when you say things like that, you've got to back it up as well. So we'll have to wait and see if they get past their next fights and they start negotiating Joshua Wilder. Will Deontay Wilder back his words and turn around and say, yeah, hey, all right, I said that, let's do it. But do you agree to it? Etc. etc. Wilder's also, you know, he's been very vocal. He's had a media day workout, so he's going to be very vocal. He's also said, you know, when people have asked him about the Joshua fight, you know, etc., and he's turned around and said, you know, one reporter turned around and said, you know, about Barry Hearn coming over to the US to talk to Shelley Finkel, etc. And Wilder turned around and said, he goes, they didn't come around and talk about me against AJ. They wanted me to fight Dillian Whyte. They keep talking about Dillian Whyte. You know, he's done it. He was also asked the same question on seconds out after the Showtime press conference recently, and his reply was, and excuse my language, he said they got a dick hard on for Dillian Whyte. I don't usually swear on my channel, but that's what he said. That they've got a dick hard on for Dillian Whyte, and they keep talking about wanting me to fight Dillian Whyte. Barry Hearn comes over here and instead of talking AJ, he's talking Dillian Whyte. You know, I don't want Dillian Whyte, I want Anthony Joshua. I want to unify and become undisputed champion, basically what he said. He's also said, you know, in recently from last week, he turned around and said, that, you know, AJ himself keeps talking about Jermall Miller and a rematch with Dillian Whyte. You know, you shouldn't be talking about those guys. You should be talking about me. You should be talking about unifying and wanting to fight the WBC heavyweight champion of the world. You know, not these other guys. You know, he keeps talking about the guys. He keeps telling me, everyone, him, his promoter, his team, keeps saying that I'm an easy fight, that they'll knock me out in 3 rounds, that he'll put his jab right through my face and all that sort of stuff. Well, come on then, and prove it. Prove that you can do this, you know, let's have the fight, you know, stop talking about all these other fighters, let's get it on. So I think Wilder was airing a lot of his frustrations. Obviously he's admitted he's purposely being very annoying as well, because he wants to get people talking about the fight. He wants people to push for the fight, and a lot of boxing fans now are saying that they want to see the fight. So you know what, if they get through their next fight, them two, I don't see why they can't make Joshua Wilder, you know, in the summer or September, etc., or later on in the year. You know, that fight can easily be made right. You know, there are things like mandatories and stuff in the way, which I'll talk about in a minute. But you know, for me, I want to see this fight. I really do. I think they're the two best heavyweights in the world. I think their profiles at the moment where they're at makes it for a great fight. You know, they're both charismatic in their own way. They've both got their own style and their way about it. Two different personalities which are clashing. You know, it makes for a great build-up as well. You know, I think it could be a great boxing rivalry, in my opinion, that you will remember from years from now. And, you know, personally, I actually want to see the fight. You know, and hopefully, you know, let's hope it gets made anyway. All right, moving on. Let's talk about Mr. Tyson Fury. Now, I'm going to put a pic up of Tyson Fury. There he is, the Gypsy King. Now, look at that picture. Now, that was him in September 2017, and this is him on the right now in training. As you can see, he's already cut a lot of weight. I mean, it's incredible. It's quite impressive. It's great, but it's great to see as well. It's great to see that motivation and that determination coming back into Tyson Fury. I've always said boxing needs him. Boxing needs characters, and they need characters like Tyson Fury. I think he's a very good boxer. He proved that against Vladimir Klitschko in the way he did it. He is the man who beat the man. He is the lineal champion. Yes, he's been stripped of his Ring Magazine belt, but that still doesn't matter. Doesn't mean anything. He is still the lineal champion. He is the man who beat the man, and the man was at the time Vladimir Klitschko, and Tyson Fury beat him. So he's still the lineal champion. And Frank Warren has basically turned around and said that they're looking to, well, for his first year back in boxing, Tyson Fury, they'll be looking to at least getting him 4 fights for the first year. So here in 2018, we're looking at 4 fights for Tyson Fury. And Frank Warren has also turned around and said that AJ isn't the lineal champion until he beats Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is still undefeated. To be fair, he's got a point. You know, Tyson Fury is the lineal champion, and if AJ wants to be known as the man, again, he's got to beat the man, just like Tyson Fury did. And right now, you have to say, regardless that he's been out for 2 years or whatever, he's the lineal champion, which makes him the man in a sense, and AJ needs to beat him. He needs to have him on his record. Tyson Fury has also recently come out himself on, I think it was in his Instagram video he did, where he said he was sending contracts out to Shannon Briggs and Antonio Tarver. He says he's sending out, he's not going to have those fights as his first fight back. He needs an easy fight to kind of ease his way back into the ring. But he definitely wants to fight those two as well. Which means if he has a tune-up fight, fights Briggs, fights Tarver, providing he gets through all the fights, of course, that means, you know, he knows about 3 fights then maybe he can have a more serious, more competitive fight than those 3, in my opinion. I'll just play you the video now where Tyson says this.
This is the message to Shannon the Cannon Briggs. First of all, let's go, champ. Second of all, I'm going to send you a contract. Get you signed up good and proper, so you know you've got something to train for. Keep yourself in shape, get fit, pump a bit of iron, do a bit of sparring, even come and do a bit of training with me if you want, no problem. We'll get it on. Let's go, champ. Some contract coming your way from me. Let's go, champ.
So there you have it. That's what Tyson Fury's saying. He's sending out contracts, etc. But he seemed really positive, upbeat, very, he seemed motivated, and he looks motivated because obviously he's losing the weight as well, which is great to see. I'm looking forward to seeing Tyson Fury comes back, because that means there's more potentially great fights to be made at the heavyweight division. You know, we've got Wilder, we've got Joshua, we've got Parker, we've got Fury then. You know, we've got Povetkin. You know, there's plenty of, you know, there's more names there, you know what I mean? It's not like the heavyweight division is not massively stacked with like some other divisions, but there are some key names in there, and I think Tyson Fury, in my opinion, plays a massive part in that. And AJ needs that win. He does need that win, regardless of loads of people are playing it down and, you know, cussing down Tyson Fury. Stop it. Do you know what I mean? It's good for the sport. It's good, and it would be good for AJ's legacy as well. You know, like, you know, I'm not saying AJ beats him or Tyson Fury beats AJ, you know, if the fight got made, I would give you my prediction then. But do you know what I mean? It's just good for the sport, is what I'm trying to say. So, you know, looking forward to it, and we'll hopefully see Tyson Fury back in the ring soon. So let's talk about Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker. Not their fight particularly, but the undercard. There's an interesting fight on there. We've got Oleksandr Povetkin versus David Price. Now, it's interesting with David Price, like how he's managed to get this fight. You know, I have to admit, he's very lucky to get this opportunity. We know David Price has had serious difficulties in his career, in terms of his career, since his first loss to Tony Thompson, and then his second loss to Tony, the immediate rematch he had with Tony Thompson. He got knocked out in both those fights. He then had to kind of start rebuilding his career on the back of that, and then lost to Erkan Temper. Now, to be honest with David Price, Tony Thompson, after their second fight, I think it was his second fight, sorry, his rematch with Tony Thompson, I think if I remember right, Tony Thompson tested positive for PEDs, so did Temper. He also tested positive, if I'm correct, for PEDs. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that one, my memory's a little hazy. So which was a bit unfair on David Price, because, do you know what I mean, these guys cheated against him, and you know it's affected his career. And this is where I'm talking about that, you know, these boxing organisations need to take a more serious stance on drug cheats in the sport, because David Price is a very good example of that. Yeah, David Price, he fought Tony Thompson, lost. He had a rematch with Tony Thompson and then lost again, knocked out in both fights. And then after the second fight, we find out that Tony Thompson was on a PED. Yeah, fights Temper, gets knocked out by Temper, and then again he tests positive, Temper, for a PED. So, do you know what I mean? I feel for him, I do. He then had to come from the back of that, rebuild his career again. Went up against Christian Hammer, lost to Christian Hammer as well. And then I think Christian Hammer was the one who went on and fought Povetkin in the final eliminator to become the WBA mandatory challenger to Anthony Joshua's WBA world title. So in a sense, where I've said David Price is very lucky to get this opportunity, at the same time you could look at it at this point that maybe it's poetic justice, where it's been an unfair trip for him throughout his career so far, where he's kind of been screwed over by drug cheats. And maybe this is, you know, karma coming back around and saying, well, there you go, we're going to give you this opportunity. So maybe in a weird way, he kind of probably deserves this chance, if you get what I mean. Now, Povetkin on the back of that has turned around and says, in his eyes, he says this is a great opportunity for him to prepare for Anthony Joshua. Basically, his manager and Povetkin have been saying this, that obviously he's the WBA mandatory challenger to Anthony Joshua's WBA title, and they feel that this is a great opportunity to come over to the UK, fight in front of a massive crowd, like, you know, in Wales, in front of 78,000 fans. It's a great way for him to prepare for his potential fight down the line with Anthony Joshua, and it's a smart move. I can see what they mean by it, because you think about it, you know, they come over, they get a feel of the British crowd, the British atmosphere, the massive stadium, the full capacity of 78,000 screaming fans. You know, they get a good feel for it. It is a smart move on their part as well, when you think about it. And it kind of like eradicates that whole problem of having nerves in that sort of atmosphere, etc., and stuff like that. So a good move on their part. Povetkin also turned around and said himself that he feels he'll get Anthony Joshua before Deontay Wilder does. Not that he's looking past any of his current opponent or anything like that, but he goes, if he gets past Price, he thinks he'll get the first shot at Anthony Joshua, because they haven't even started negotiations between Wilder and AJ. So he goes, that fight between Wilder and AJ is way off from being made. I mean, they still got to get past, AJ still got to get past Parker, and Wilder needs to get past Ortiz, and then you have to go through the process of negotiations, going back and forth with each other, etc., etc. So he's probably right. I have to agree with him. Most likely the next fight for Anthony Joshua after Parker, should he get past Parker, is is probably going to be his mandatory defense against Oleksandr Povetkin. But imagine if David Price was to pull off a massive upset on the night against Povetkin. That would be an amazing story. What a story that would be! Because if Pricey beats Povetkin, Price becomes the WBA mandatory challenger to Anthony Joshua's WBA title. Could you imagine that? That'd be an interesting one. You know, it's a real. In a way, it feels like for David Price, with everything I've said about him, it feels like a real underdog story, where he's got an opportunity to go on and do something great potentially. And it's probably the only chance Price is going to get. If he doesn't do it on this one, I don't know how many more opportunities he's going to get to do it later on down the line. So, but it would be one hell of a story if that did happen. Okay, so let's talk about Tony Bellew now. Tony Bellew recently came out and explained as to why he never followed through with his challenge to the bronze bomber Deontay Wilder. I've been talking about a lot about Wilder in this video, but like I said, he's been really vocal, and some people have been quite vocal about him. Now, let's just go over why Tony Bellew didn't end up fighting or didn't end up following through with his challenge to the bronze bomber Deontay Wilder. Actually, let me play the audio for you. Here you go. Alright, just give me a second. Here it comes.
I thought, he's not actually that big. And then the next night in the Millennium Stadium, he came over to me. It wasn't the Millennium Stadium, no, it was Wembley. The next night he came over to me and we got talking, and I said, listen, one thing I said to him is, I didn't apologise like the tit said I did. I never apologised at all. I walked over to him and said, I respect what you're doing with the decision, with the ultimatum with your daughter and stuff. I said, I've watched some videos of your back behind the scenes stuff, and I've got a lot of respect for what you do for you. And he said, oh, thank you very much. And we slapped hands, and he hugged me, and I hugged him, and his arm literally wrapped around my whole body, and it's like he tickled his own chin. And at that moment I knew, this is never happening. I am never going anywhere near you. So if I'm not going to take it, why should I take a fight and put myself in danger? Why should I do that? Every fight's dangerous enough as it is, but I'm not going to give people unnecessary advantages and do that. Why should I? What for? Because so you guys can watch me get my face punched in because you can't stand me.
So you heard it there, Tony Bellew and his reason as to why he won't fight Deontay Wilder. I thought it's quite funny when he said when he put his arm around me and he kind of tickled his own. Tickled his beard. But look, my point here is that Tony Bellew turns around and still says he will fight Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is probably the biggest heavyweight out there. I think he's actually taller and bigger than Deontay Wilder as well. He's got a longer reach, everything, yeah? So I don't even think, if you will fight Tyson Fury, who's bigger, taller, has maybe a slightly longer reach perhaps potentially. I'd have to go and look at the stats and facts to kind of confirm that. But when I saw them, when Tyson Fury jumped in the ring and went face to face with Wilder once, it looked like to me Tyson Fury was the taller guy and the bigger guy. But you're willing to get in a fight with Tyson Fury but not Deontay Wilder, which makes me think that Tony Bellew probably, in his head, it's got nothing to do with the size or anything like that, or the reach. It is simply Tony Bellew probably believes that he wouldn't be able to handle Deontay Wilder's power. You know, Tyson Fury is really not a power punch. Well, he has got power. He's a heavyweight after all, but he's not like a knockout power sort of. He ain't got that knockout power, that one punch knockout power like Deontay Wilder probably has. So he probably thinks he's got a better chance against someone like Tyson Fury, and he does say he still will face Tyson Fury at the heavyweights. You know, he said he'd fight Dillian Whyte if the price was right. He said he wouldn't fight AJ because him and AJ get along and they're mates and buddies and all that sort of stuff. So that was his reason for not following up on his challenge with Deontay Wilder. Still got more things to talk about here with Tony Bellew. Now, if you didn't know, I'm going to tell you now. Tony Bellew is still at cruiserweight. He is still the WBC Emeritus champion. basically, he vacated his title to stay at heavyweight, etc. So they made him the Emiratis champion, which means he can come back whenever he wants to cruiserweight and challenge for that WBC title that was his. He's turned around and said that he's happy to come back down to cruiserweight and put in his challenge as the Emiratis champion against Oleksandr Usyk. Now, as you know, Oleksandr Usyk is in the final against Gassiev in the World Boxing Series, which I think has been a great tournament. I think it's been great for boxing, to be honest with you, because after that fight we will have an undisputed champion at cruiserweight. Let me just play a little audio for you what Tony Bellew actually had to say in that when it came to Usyk. Here it is.
Emiratis champion, yes, which allows me to now call upon Mr. Oleksandr Usyk when I see fit. I'll wait till the WBSS series is over and I will be calling that name. Yes, as much as people want to laugh at me and say, yo, you won't, yes, you. I called David Hay's name and you all laughed at me then. I went in the ring against all the odds and beat David Hay. I don't care what you want to say, it's injury or whatever. All you guys watching were saying he was going to leave me in a coma inside 2 rounds, him included. Yes, I'll go in with Oleksandr Usyk, and yes, I might be getting punched all over the place for about 5 or 6 rounds, but understand I will land, and that left hook will have an effect. If it can have an effect on heavyweights, it can have an effect on cruiserweights too. I will take on anybody. I don't fear anybody at cruiserweight, Oleksandr Usyk included. As great a fighter as he is, as much of a fan of his as I am, I'm not saying here I'm a better boxer than Oleksandr Usyk. I just think.
There you have it. That's what Tony Bellew had to say about Oleksandr Usyk. He's saying that he's going to come back down to cruiserweight, and look, there's no guarantee Usyk's going to win that fight in the final. It could end up being Gassiev, because it's a great fight between those two. But if Usyk wins, he clearly wants Usyk. And also, he's got to have one fight, and not only does he get his back, if he wins, not only does he get his WBC title back at cruiserweight, he becomes the undisputed champion at cruiserweight. So I think he's seen an opportunity there which benefits him massively, rather than any opportunity at heavyweight, and thought, you know what, I think I'll go back down to cruiserweight because there's a big chance for me there to do something great, and etc. And put my name out there. He likes to talk a lot, Tony Bellew. You know what he's like. But yeah, I think he's sniffed out a good opportunity for him, rather than taking on maybe one of the heavyweights, to be honest with you. Not only that, Virgil Hunter has come out and stated that he's not saying guarantee, definitely. He has said that Andre Ward could potentially come out if the price was right to fight Tony Bellew. Now, what Virgil Hunter has turned around and said is that, remember this fight was supposed to happen before, potentially could have happened before Andre Ward retired, and apparently Tony Bellew didn't agree to the terms of the fight. He wasn't happy with the terms, etc. and stuff like that. So the fight never materialised. But he has turned around and said that, don't count it out. Andre Ward would probably come out if the price was right to fight Tony Bellew here in the UK as well, because they know the fight would be massive here in the UK. And here in the UK, Andre Ward, there are a lot of Andre Ward fans, believe it or not. I like Andre Ward. I think he's a very talented individual. He's a great boxer, no doubt about it. He's proved himself time and time again. I would like to see him come back, to be honest with you. I think he's retired a little early, to be honest with you. But he says that if the price is right, we can make that fight. Eddie Hearn also recently in an IFL interview turned around and said that, he kind of said it like in a jokey way to Virgil Hunter, and Virgil Hunter just looked at him and said, nodded his head, yeah, as to say, yeah, we probably could do that. So interesting whether that fight could be made, and whether Andre Ward would consider coming out of retirement. Clearly he would, according to Virgil Hunter, if the price was right. I don't know what that kind of money would look like, but you never know. Stranger things have happened in boxing. Okay, and now finally, as we're nearing the end of the podcast, I kind of just want to quickly touch on two subjects. One is Amir Khan and the other one is Adrien Broner. So let's get started with Amir Khan. We saw at his press conference with Phil Greco what happened. Phil Greco, listen, I've told you I'm all for trash talking and talking shit to your opponent and being entertaining, yeah. But the one thing I'm going to say, he made comments about Amir Khan's wife. We all know that, regarding Anthony Joshua and all that sort of stuff. And the one thing, when it comes to trash talking, I like it when it's just directed at the boxer himself, yeah? When you talk about their record or what they've achieved in the sport or what they haven't, in your opinion, the way they've dressed or whatever it might be. But when you start bringing family members into it, like wives, kids, parents, whatever, I think you're going a bit too far in that sense. However, saying that, also at the same time, when it comes to Amir Khan in that whole situation, in my opinion, Amir Khan's only got himself to blame. I just want to give my quick thoughts on this, which is Amir Khan, if my advice to him would be, if you want other men or other people to respect your wife, then you need to respect her yourself. Going on social media and basically calling her a slut is what you basically did with that whole AJ thing. You're not showing any respect as her husband. Do you know what I mean, in that situation? So what have you done? You know what I mean? You've opened up the door for other people to be critical of your wife and make comments like that to you. And you're giving opportunities to fighters like Phil Greco to take cheap shots at you and get under your skin. Don't get me wrong, it could be all of, some people are saying, oh, they're just doing it to hype the fight and all that sort of stuff because it's not a high profile fight. Could be some truth to that. But at the same time, do you know what I mean? If it isn't, then you kind of got to take a little bit of the blame yourself because you've allowed that to happen from your social media tweets, etc., where you've talked about your wife in a disrespectful manner. Hopefully he's taken a bit of a learning from it, Amir Khan, and hopefully he doesn't make that mistake again about airing his dirty laundry in public like that in future, because quite clearly, there's some individuals out there who aren't going to be respectful or decent about that sort of situation. They're going to use it against you. Moving on quickly and swiftly, let's talk about Adrien Broner. AB. Mr. About Billions. He's recently been in the news for the wrong reasons again. Do you know what? I don't know where it was, Adrien Broner. I don't want to criticise too much, because he quite clearly, it seems like to me he might, clearly has some sort of mental ill issue. Suffers from some sort of form of depression or whatever it is. Because it's not the first time he's done this sort of thing. I remember, was it a year ago or whatever, last year or the year before that, where he put up pictures on Instagram of a gun and all this sort of stuff. He was talking about it the other week, which he's now deleted. He put up a picture saying, F your mama, F your dad, F my mama, F my dad, F my kids, F your kids, F the world, and basically that kind of stuff. And yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, was it yesterday or the day before, he got arrested for sexual battery. Now, I'm just going to play you the video and then I'll talk about it a little bit more.
Hey, they got AB, man, early. Why they did that to him, dog?
Now, that's a video that's going around on social media and YouTube. Adrien Broner's come out today and he's basically turned around and said that he didn't. A female fan approached him, wanted to take a picture with him, and he basically refused her, or he probably wasn't in the mood or whatever it was, but he said no to her, and things got out of hand. She got upset by it, and you saw what you saw happen in the video, and then you saw the police taking him away. That's Adrien Broner's side of things, but these aren't the first incidents with Adrien Broner. You know, it's quite sad with Adrien Broner, man, because when he first started out, he showed a lot of potential, a lot of talent. A lot of people were putting him up there saying he was the next Floyd Mayweather in boxing, And ever since his loss to Marcus Maidana, it's kind of been a downward spiral for him. Stuff outside of the ring with his baby mamas, getting shot at, etc. All these things, a whole load of things with Adrien Broner. It's like one thing after another. Every time he promises to do something different, change his ways, he's going to come back, he'll be world champion, he's going to prove everyone wrong, and then something like this happens. So with Adrien Broner, a lot of people, even if you want to defend Adrien Broner, it's hard because there's no smoke without fire, as they say, and you're going to have to just see how this one turns out. I mean, he's supposed to be fighting Omar Figueroa on April 21st. You think, you need that kind of focus. And he talks about wanting to be a world champion again, but all these things that are going on outside of the ring show a lack of discipline and a lack of focus. So how are you supposed to be focused and disciplined when it comes to your training and then preparation for a fight, and then going on to try and be world champion again? He fought Mikey Garcia, and he didn't look great in that fight. So he's got a lot to kind of prove, in a sense, as well, in my opinion. To prove that he was worth all that praise that he received in the early parts of his career, for the potential and the talent that he had. But I don't know who Adrien Broner has around him. I don't know what his trainers are like and his team's like, what his friends are like. But whoever is around him, someone needs to stop and say to him, "Hey mate, listen, get yourself together, because what you ain't doing ain't right. You ain't living your life right. Get yourself back on track." Kind of put him in check a little bit. But yeah, definitely look, I think Adrien Broner needs to kind of stop and reflect and try, and if he wants to go on and be a world champion, he needs to sort himself out, plain and simple. I mean, he's got a fight coming up with Omar Figueroa on April 21st, for crying out loud. Now, talking about Omar Figueroa, it's quite funny. I can't stop laughing now. I'm going to find it really hard not to laugh on this one. Omar Figueroa, I think yesterday, was arrested for DUI out in the States, driving under the influence. So we've got Adrien Broner being arrested for sexual battery, and then we've got Omar Figueroa being arrested for DUI. My boy T-Dub on What's Blazing on Sports, my YouTube buddy out in the States, he did a live stream about this yesterday, and he called it "Loser Pleads Guilty." It was quite funny, actually, and what he was basically saying was that a loser has to plead guilty. So when Omar Figueroa and Broner fight, the loser has to plead guilty. The loser has to give up his entire purse to the winner, and the loser also has to do 2 days in jail. So I thought that was quite funny. I started laughing when he was doing his live stream. Shout out to my boy T-Dub and What's Blazing in Sports. Please go subscribe to his channel. He's got a great channel, puts up some great content, gives some great insight into the sport of boxing as well. But I thought that was kind of funny, and I thought, that wouldn't be a bad idea. It was kind of fun, and they can make that kind of like the slogan for the fight, or the name of the card, "Loser Pleads Guilty." But look, I'm starting to wonder if we're even going to get a fight on April 21st between Broner and Figueroa, because they've both been arrested. They've both got to go to court and stuff like that over it all. But I just thought that was kind of funny. A lighter note to kind of finish the podcast on. That's all I've really got for you guys today on this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing it. It's the first one, so bear with me. Obviously I'm going to smooth out the rough edges if there were any during the podcast, but I hope you enjoyed the content. And as always, like, share and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.
I was gonna rip his heart out, I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Next to the conqueror, no, I'm Alexander, he's no Alexander. I'm the best ever, there's never been anybody ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston, I'm Jack Dempsey, there's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw, there's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart, I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.